emails have been pouring in. Thank you for those. Keep them coming. Helen says about the obesity drug and the potential for that. Well, just eat healthy food, exercise, weight will come down, the diabetes risk will fall, heart attack risk will fall as well. Why take a drug when you don't know what it's going to do, what might be the side effects in the future? I think Helen's bang on the money there. And as Peter said, actually a bit of individual responsibility. And who should pay? I mean, the NHS is struggling already. Do we really want to add another huge burden of cost on it? On the private school debate, well, that has got people going. Janice says, what's wrong with private schools? We've got private healthcare. I mean, are Labour going to put VAT on private healthcare? Do you know, I think they might, actually. They're not telling anybody, but I think they might. Are they going to do away with that, Janice says? Louise says, private schools, the envy of the world, which they are, and yet once again, Labour's set to destroy a great British institution. James says, we need more affordable private schools. I sent my daughter to private school. It was money well spent, and her monthly salary paid for her schooling and travelling costs. The only choice of mainstream school where she was one of the worst schools in the country, and that was under a Labour government. Well, keep me those thoughts coming in, and we'll get back to them on the website, gbnews.com/your say. And this may get people going as well, the great cyclist debate, because should cyclists face the same penalties as motorists, particularly causing death by serious or indeed by serious injury, by dangerous or careless cycling? It's set to become an offence. The government's agreed to a change in the law this week just gone. And under this change, dangerous cyclists could face up to 14 years. 14 years in prison. Well, currently, you see, cyclists are not subject to the same rules as motorists, and it drives you mad. You're sitting there at the front of a traffic queue, the lights are red, and the cyclist just goes straight on through. Because apparently the road legislation only applies to mechanically propelled vehicles. What about e-bikes, for heaven's sake? The new law is following a campaign by former Tory leader Ian Duncan Smith, who says that cyclists should be accountable for their reckless behaviour. So what do we think to this? Well, joining me now is the lawyer Nick Freeman, known as Mr. Loophole, and Dave Sherry, who's been described, possibly slightly harshly, as Britain's most hated cyclist. Gentlemen, a very good morning to you. Thanks for joining me. Nick, what's your view on this? I mean, surely if you're a road user, cyclist, motorist, e-cyclist, you should abide by the same rules, shouldn't you?
Well, we should all have the same rules apply to us, absolutely. So when you talk about red lights, actually there is a law in place that prohibits cyclists from going on through red lights, cycling on the pavement. But actually the big problem is you have a bike that goes through a red light, but who is it? You've got no means of identifying. So my view is that we should have an identification system, a small registration plate on a bike or a registered tabard. So we have exactly the same means of detecting people who break the law as we do for motor vehicles, a system in place. And I do welcome the government's change in plan to bring in laws to make cyclists accountable. If you make people accountable, they tend to cycle more responsibly. And it is a small minority who cycle dangerously, as it is indeed with car drivers. But when they do that, if they injure someone or kill someone, they need to be held accountable. We don't want to be prosecuting people under the Offences Against the Persons Act 1861, which was designed for horses and carriages, when the maximum sentence.
So Nick, you would actually have some form of registration plate so that everybody is treated equally.
Make the law apply to everyone.
Absolutely. So Dave, what's wrong with that? I mean, surely we're all equal under the law. There shouldn't be any difference. And if you cycle irresponsibly, recklessly, then people's lives could be endangered.
Yeah, I totally agree. We all road users, we all share a duty and responsibility for each and other one's safety. But what needs to be brought into account is majority of deaths are caused by vehicles, not cyclists. They're very negligible. It's based on probabilities. And, the way I've got to see it is what's going to cause more harm, a vehicle or a cyclist? But at the end of the day, we all got to be brought to account. We all road users and we all fall within the law. But at the moment, as Nick would say, cyclists do not fall within the Road Traffic Act.
So that's quite solvable. And Dave, would you go as far as Nick and have registration plates on the back of bicycles, some form of insurance as well, so that, again, everybody's treated equally?
Well, I've had various discussions with Nick about this in the past, and it's never come to fruition. It's basically politicians do all the talking but no walking. I don't think they got the gumption. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I spend my life talking about it, Dave. But it is a serious point, isn't it, actually, that too often now, and cycling's a great thing for exercise and things, but there are more and more cyclists that just jump red lights.
No one's perfect, but at the end of the day, you got the prima donnas.
Well, yeah,
Car
that's right.
drivers stop red lights. Just ask Nick.
And Nick, should cyclists have to insure themselves as well?
Absolutely, exactly the same law. You imagine taking registration plates off motor vehicles. How will people drive? Having a means of identification ensures accountability, and that ensures responsibility. And exactly the same thought process applies to cycles as well. So, once you say to someone, look, you go through that red light, you cycle on the pavement, we are going to trace you. There's a system in place. You'll at least be fined. You may be disqualified if you accumulate enough penalty points. They're going to think twice about it. And I'm quite confident.
And does that apply to speeding? Dave, I mean, quite often now you're driving along at 20 miles an hour thinking this is a bit slow in a big wide road, and a cyclist come past you at, I don't know, about 30 or 40.
Well, I'll give them kudos to that because I can manage about 20, but if they're on illegally modified e-bikes, then you know what I mean? At the end of the day, you're not going to stop these vehicles who are avoiding their insurance with dodgy number plates. You know it goes on.
Yeah, but I mean, we're not encouraging breaking the law. What we're really just saying is actually we all need to be equal under the law. And of course, cyclists are an increasing percentage of the use of the road at the front of traffic lights, lots of cycle lanes, etc. It's not unreasonable, is it, Nick?
No, absolutely. We need speed limits. It's ironical, isn't it? You've got, pedestrians number one in the order of priority for vulnerability. Then you've got cyclists. And cyclists are perversely not subject to speed limits. You have cars going at, say, 20 miles an hour in London. You know how it is. I'm going to be joining them this afternoon. And you're undertaken and overtaken by cyclists who are invariably travelling very close to you. And, they're supposed to be, for motorists, if you're overtaking a bicycle, it's at least 1.5 metres. And they're a foot away from you. So they're thwarting the protection that we've sought to put in place to look after them. The whole system is archaic.
We're talking modernising the system, Nick. Final thought from both of you, yes or no? E-scooters. Dave, should they be allowed? Keep them or bin them? Yes or no?
Bin them, mate. They're fruitless. To be honest with you, bikes have been around for how many years? And they are the safest.
They're the safest. Nick, e-scooters, keep or bin?
Yeah, no, you keep them, but make them identifiable. They have a place. We need an infrastructure, and they do serve a purpose, but it needs to be different to the way it is at the moment.